They hugged in the driveway like no one was watching. Except I was. From my car. Parked just down the street. Engine off. AC humming like a quiet threat. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles had turned a kind of pale I didn't recognize. I hadn't planned on being there. That house, our house, was supposed to be empty. The movers weren't due for another week. We'd agreed, or maybe I just assumed, that we'd avoid it until everything was sorted. It was the place we picked off a Pinterest board and built out of Sunday afternoons and Home Depot coupons. The house with the wraparound porch she said she'd drink coffee on when she was 70. Where our son took his first steps. Where we carved our initials into the base of the old oak out back. It wasn't just a house. It was a future we once agreed on. And now she was leaning into another man's chest like that future had never existed. I didn't recognize him. Tall. Beard. Baseball cap. Not young, not old, just that easy, confident kind of man who probably never had to second-guess a single damn thing. He held her like she belonged there. Like he belonged there. Her hands were wrapped around his waist. Not tight. Not passionate. But familiar. Casual in the kind of way that only happens when boundaries have already been erased. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that she hugged him, or that she did it there. On that cracked path we laid together in July heat, dripping sweat and laughing about how terrible we were at home improvement. I didn't get out of the car. I couldn't. Instead, I sat there, staring through a dusty windshield, wondering how long it had been happening. Wondering if our son had seen. If he even understood what this meant. If I did. It had been 3 weeks since she said she needed space. Said she was confused. I moved out so she could figure it out, and because I still believed, in some desperate, idiotic way, that giving her room would bring her back to me. That she'd come to her senses. That the silence between us was a bruise, not a break. That she'd remember what it felt like to trace circles on my chest at 3 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. Or the way her fingers always found mine under restaurant tables, like a quiet promise no one else got to see. But standing there, arms wrapped around a stranger, she didn't look confused. She looked relieved. Like she could finally breathe. And me? I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. Like I was watching my life end in slow motion, not with screaming, not with cheating confessions or dramatic fights. Just with that hug. That quiet, devastating hug. I finally turned the key in the ignition. The engine coughed to life like it was waking from a coma. My hand hovered over the gearshift. I could have left. Should have. But something in the rearview mirror caught my eye. There was a box on the porch. A small cardboard box, taped shut, with my name written across the top in her handwriting. I hadn't seen it before. And suddenly I knew I couldn't leave. Because whatever was inside that box was going to answer the question I hadn't dared ask. And I was wrong to open it. I didn't walk to the porch. I drifted. Every step felt like it belonged to someone else, like I was trespassing on a life I no longer had permission to touch. The gravel crunched under my boots, louder than I remembered. The air smelled like sawdust and lavender, the cheap kind she used to spray in the bathroom. And there it was. The box. Just a small, ordinary box. But taped so neatly, like she cared how it arrived in my hands. And written across the top, James, in her handwriting. The same one from birthday cards and sticky notes on the fridge. The same one from our wedding vows. I reached for it, not fully understanding why my fingers were trembling. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe some instinct that whatever was inside would make everything worse. I didn't open it right away. I carried it down the steps like it was fragile. Like it might shatter. Back in the car, I sat with it in my lap. Staring. Then I peeled the tape. Inside, one navy blue sweatshirt, mine. A mug with a chipped handle that used to sit on my nightstand. A framed photo of us at Lake Arrowhead, her face tucked under my chin, my arm around her, both of us squinting into the sun like we couldn't imagine anything better. And at the bottom, a letter. Not in an envelope. Just folded once. Torn from a notebook. I didn't want to read it. But I did. James. I don't know what else to do. I can't keep pretending everything's okay, and I know this hurts. I didn't want to be the one to break us. I swear I didn't plan any of this. But it's been broken for a long time, and I think you knew that too. Please don't make this harder than it already is. We need peace. For Caleb. For ourselves. I'll explain everything when the time is right. Be kind to yourself. M. There was no love. No, I'm sorry. No real truth. Just detachment. Like she had already cut the cord, and this was just cleanup. I gripped the letter until the paper creased down the middle, sharp as a blade. Then I folded it again. And again. And again. Until it disappeared into a tight, shaking square. My hands smelled like dust and old cologne. Hers. I sat there for a long time. Maybe an hour. Maybe 10. I don't really know. Time got weird. But eventually, I noticed something. Beneath the sweatshirt, tucked between the folds, was a child's drawing. A stick figure family. 3 people. Big sun in the corner. One smiling house. Except there were 4 figures at the bottom. One of them had a beard. And it wasn't me. It wasn't some vague, childish doodle. The man with the beard in that drawing had been given details. Blue hat. Big smile. Arms wrapped around my son. And me? I wasn't even on the paper. I ran my thumb across the crayon lines, half hoping I was imagining it. But the drawing was real. Deliberate. Drawn by a child who didn't know he was breaking someone's heart. Caleb's handwriting was on the back. Me and Mommy and Ben. Ben. Not Daddy. Not James. Ben. I didn't know any Ben. My chest started to ache in a way I didn't have a name for. Not sharp. Not crushing. Just a slow, deep ache, like my ribs were trying to cave in around something that didn't belong there. Had she introduced him to Caleb already? Had he been part of our mornings, pouring cereal, tying shoelaces, brushing teeth? Had Caleb called him Dad? I wanted to scream, but the sound caught somewhere between my stomach and my throat. Instead, I reached for my phone. There were no new messages from her. No missed calls. No updates. Just the last text she'd sent 3 days ago. Can you send the spare car seat? I hadn't asked who it was for. Now I wished I had. I scrolled through my photos, searching for something. Anything. A clue. And that's when I saw it. A photo she'd posted to her private Facebook account. I wasn't supposed to see it, I'd been blocked weeks ago. But I still had an old friend logged in from a shared device. And curiosity, or maybe masochism, made me check. There it was. A photo of Caleb and her at the local park. Smiling. And behind them, just far enough in the blur, a man. Ball cap. Beard. Same build as the guy in the driveway. Same man from the drawing. The caption said. Sunshine and second chances. Second chances. Like she was starting over. And I wasn't part of the new story. The anger came fast, hot, wild, and stupid. I punched the steering wheel so hard the horn screamed. A neighbor's dog barked in response. Somewhere down the block, a curtain moved. I wasn't the type to make a scene. But everything I'd held in, all the quiet pain, the waiting, the compromise, the hope, it just cracked. And through it, something else rose up. Not rage. Resolve. I turned off the ignition, shoved the box into the passenger seat, and pulled out of the driveway. I didn't know where I was going yet. Not exactly. But I remembered the photo. I remembered the park. And I needed to see something with my own eyes. Because there was still one thing I didn't understand. How long had my son been lying to me? The park was only 15 minutes from the old house. But the drive felt longer. Like I was crossing into a version of my life I hadn't been invited to. When I pulled into the lot, I parked far from the entrance. Didn't want to be seen. Didn't even know what I was looking for, a moment. A mistake. Proof that I wasn't crazy. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the wood chips and benches. Moms with strollers. Toddlers chasing pigeons. Laughter in bursts that didn't belong to me. And then I saw them. Caleb. Running toward the swings. Hair a little longer than the last time I saw him. Wearing the green hoodie I bought him last Christmas. The one with the tiny rip near the elbow. Still there. And behind him. Her. My wife, or whatever word applied now. Hair pulled up. Sunglasses on. Laughing. And next to her, Ben. Holding her coffee. Smiling like he belonged. His hand grazed the small of her back as she leaned toward him and whispered something. They looked like a family. Not like people figuring things out. Not like a mom trying to co-parent during a break. Like a unit. I stayed behind a tree, half hidden. My heart pounding so loud I was afraid someone might hear it. Like it didn't belong in this scene. Like I didn't. And that's when Caleb turned. He spotted them, waved, and yelled something. I couldn't hear it at first. But then I saw his arms stretch out and his smile go wide. Daddy Ben. The words were soft. But I heard them like a gunshot. I didn't know how I stayed standing. The kid I had swaddled at 2 a.m., whose favorite song used to be my off-key version of You Are My Sunshine, just gave my name away like it was never mine to begin with. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched. Like a stranger. Like a ghost haunting a life that no longer needed him. After a few minutes, they left. Packed up quickly, probably dinner time. I waited until their car pulled out. Until the parking lot was quiet again. Then I walked to the swing where Caleb had just been. The seat was still warm. And hanging from the chain, barely visible in the fading light, was a plastic toy soldier. One of the ones I used to hide in his lunchbox as a surprise. A silly ritual. A secret code between us. He'd named that one, Captain Dad. And now it was just dangling there. Forgotten. I took the toy soldier home. Not to the house. Not our house. To the apartment I'd rented after she asked for space. 2 rooms, thin walls, no porch. Just a stiff bed and a kitchen that never smelled like anything. I set Captain Dad on the nightstand. Didn't say anything. Just stared. He looked smaller than I remembered. Paint chipped. One arm half melted from the time Caleb left him on the radiator. I kept meaning to fix it. Never did. I took a shower. Not because I needed one, I just didn't know what else to do. Water was too hot. Skin turned red. Still didn't feel clean. When I got out, I checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls. Just an old photo that popped up from my memories. Caleb asleep on my chest. His fingers clutching the chain of my dog tags. Her feet in the background, up on the couch, tangled in mine. It was from that night after he had the flu. We stayed up watching cartoons until 3 a.m. He laughed so hard he puked. She held him in the bathroom, singing some lullaby I'd never heard before. I remembered thinking, this is what forever feels like. Now the photo felt like a prank. I should have seen it coming. I know people always say that after something breaks. But I really didn't. Or maybe I did, in pieces. The distance. The coldness. The way she stopped asking if I'd be home for dinner. I just kept telling myself it was a phase. That we were tired. Overwhelmed. That we'd reconnect once the fog lifted. But fog has a funny way of hiding cliffs. And I'd already fallen off one. I lay down on the couch and stared at the ceiling. No TV. No music. Just the sound of my own breathing. Slow. Measured. Hollow. Until my phone buzzed. A voicemail. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I tapped play. The voice was soft. Nervous. Hi, you don't know me. But I think you should know something. About Ben. And your wife. I don't want to cause trouble, but I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. There was a pause. Shuffling in the background. I saw them together. Before she told you it was over. I have proof. I just didn't know if you'd want it. Another pause. I'll send it tomorrow. I hope you're okay. Then the line went dead. I replayed it 3 times. Just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. That I hadn't dreamed it. Proof. Of what I didn't want to believe. Of what, deep down, I probably already knew. I looked over at the toy soldier one last time. And for the first time since all this started. I didn't feel like a father. I felt like a man who'd been replaced. The message haunted me all night. I didn't sleep. Just lay there with my mind crawling in loops. What did she do? When did it start? Was Caleb already calling him Daddy before I even left? I watched the sunrise through blinds I never bothered to fix. At 6:17 a.m., the second message came. No words. Just a video. I didn't open it right away. My thumb hovered. I told myself it didn't matter anymore. That whatever it showed couldn't hurt worse than what I'd already seen in person. But I was wrong. The video was 31 seconds long. It started with laughter. The camera was shaky, like it had been recorded through a window or behind a fence. A backyard I didn't recognize. She walked into frame first. Holding 2 glasses of wine. Ben followed. Shirtless. His hand resting on the small of her back like it had always belonged there. They kissed. Long familiar. And then she said it. Clear as a bell. I wish I didn't have to lie to him anymore. Ben laughed. Not nervously. Comfortably. Like they'd had this conversation before. You've been lying for months. What's a few more days? They both laughed. The video cut out. I stared at the screen for a long time. Like maybe it would change. Like maybe it was a mistake. A deep fake. Some cruel coincidence. But I knew her voice. Knew the way she tilted her head when she smiled like that. That wasn't new love. That was established betrayal. I didn't cry. Not this time. Something colder settled in. I thought about all the times she'd looked me in the eye. Told me she was confused. Said she needed time. That she didn't want to rush into any decisions. Meanwhile, she was already gone. I put my phone down. Got dressed in silence. And drove. I didn't text her. Didn't call. Just drove to the one place that had always felt like mine. The lake. We used to go there when we first started dating. Back when we were broke and stupid and too in love to notice the cheap sandwiches or sunburns. Caleb learned to skip rocks on that same shore. Now it felt abandoned. I sat at the edge of the water, the cold biting through my jeans. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself feel everything. The grief. The humiliation. The anger. The fear that I wasn't enough. That I'd never been enough. I reached into my coat pocket. Pulled out the toy soldier. Held it up to the sky. A gust of wind almost knocked it from my hand. But I held on. Because no matter what she did, no matter who she let in, Caleb was still mine. Even if he didn't say it. Even if he forgot. That was the one thing they couldn't take from me. But as I stood to leave, my phone buzzed again. This time, a message from her. We need to talk. I think Caleb told you something, and it's not the full story. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen. And wondered what truth she thought she still had left to give. I didn't answer her text right away. I waited 3 days. Not out of spite. I just needed time to make sure I wasn't walking into that conversation still bleeding. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to scream. I just wanted to hear what she'd say, when there was nothing left to hide behind. We met at a neutral spot, a coffee shop near the courthouse. One we never went to together. One that didn't carry the weight of old routines or shared memories. She wore a beige sweater. No makeup. Eyes tired. Hair pulled back. She looked human. Not like the villain I'd built in my head. And I hated that, how easy it was to remember who she used to be. How much I still missed the woman who sat across from me, even if she wasn't real anymore. Thanks for coming, she said, softly. I nodded. Said nothing. She reached into her purse and slid something across the table. A folded piece of paper. It was a drawing. Another one. Crayon lines. Messy stars. A family again. Only this time, 2 dads. One had a beard. One wore a little dog tag necklace drawn in red. That's from Caleb, she said. He got confused. He didn't mean to hurt you. I looked down at it. My name, written in block letters at the bottom, James, my real dad. She sipped her coffee. He never stopped talking about you. Not once. I stayed quiet. Then she added, I should have told you about Ben. Sooner. Before it got this far. I was afraid you'd never forgive me. I haven't, I said. Her eyes fell. But then I added, and I don't think you ever asked for that. She nodded once, slowly. I didn't know how to leave without destroying everything. You didn't leave, I said. You just moved the furniture around and hoped I wouldn't notice the walls were missing. She didn't argue. We talked a little more. About Caleb. About the custody plan. About holidays and routines and how we'd make sure he didn't feel like a prize being passed back and forth. There were no tears. No breakdowns. Just 2 people sitting in the ashes of something they used to love. When I stood to leave, she reached out. Touched my hand for just a second. I did love you, she said. I looked at her. And I believed her. But I also knew love doesn't always survive the people who hold it. Outside, I sat in my car for a while, holding the drawing. I didn't cry. Not that day. Instead, I drove to a craft store. Bought a frame. Took it home and placed the new drawing beside the old one, the one with just Ben in it. Not to compare. But to remind myself that stories don't always stay broken. Sometimes they just change shape. Caleb came over that weekend. He didn't say much when I showed him the framed pictures. Just crawled into my lap later that night and whispered, Captain Dad still wins. And for the first time in weeks. I slept. Not peacefully. Not perfectly. But I slept. And when I woke up, I didn't reach for my phone. I reached for the light.